The following teaching is possible thanks to the friends and partners of Spirit and Truth Fellowship International.
Hi guys, good morning, and here's a little lesson I wanted to share with you, something about a spiritual lesson I learned recently from working with wood. Most of you know that I love to work with wood. I grew up with my dad owning a lumber yard, and I love wood. When you get around wood and you work with it, you smell it, you feel its different textures, whether it be walnut or cherry, redwood, fir, they all are distinct and they all have their special, unique characteristics. The other thing you know, if you've been around much with woodworking, is that you can't work with wood for very long without having sawdust. It's almost like sawdust multiplies like bunnies on fertility pills. It just accumulates before you know it. Well, I was putting a cedar planked ceiling in my family room. It's a vaulted ceiling, and I wanted to finish it and give it more of a cabin feel. So I'm working overhead with this wood, and I'm using a nail gun, and I'm putting it up, and lo and behold, a piece of sawdust gets in my eye. At first, it was just a little irritating. And then before you know it, my eye started swelling shut. It started watering. I tried getting it out. I flushed my eye, but I couldn't get this piece of sawdust out of my eye. And I also know you have to be really careful because you can scratch your cornea, so you don't want to start rubbing it and that. But eventually, after washing my eye 2-3 times, warm water, it took a couple hours. And finally, that piece of sawdust got out of my eye. But here's the lesson that I learned from that. You know, Jesus was talking once to a group of people, and he was saying, you know, don't be so quick to criticize others. You know, it's easy to see the fault in other people. And a lot of times we do. You know, we look at someone else and what we don't like about them or how they said something. And yet, in the same way, it's almost like us having our own piece of junk stuck in our eye, and we're more concerned about what's in another person's eye than my own eye. So, for instance, you know, he used the example, it's like, you know, you're walking around with this big old beam in your eye, and yet you're pointing out specks in other people's eyes. Well, I had a speck in my eye, and it hurt a lot, and I could not see clearly with that speck. And that's the point Jesus was making. You know, he used an absurd example where he said, you know, pull the beam out of your own eye before you point at a speck in your brother's eye. But even a speck hurts. And so just as a word of encouragement, you know, let's just not be so quick to point to the faults of others and all the other things we don't like. And, you know, look at ourselves, own our own junk, be authentic. You know, if you got something you're struggling with, then just admit it. But if we do that, I think we'll have a lot more compassion, a lot more tenderness, a lot more empathy for other people. And so I'm trying to, rather than just pointing out the faults of other people so quickly, even though my mind goes there a lot of times, I want to grab that and say, okay, wait a minute, Gallagher, what about your own junk? What about your own beam that's in your eye? You know, first of all, get that beam out and then keep working and get that speck out. Because I'll tell you what, specks in the eye hurt, and we need to take care to remove them.